Hello everyone, I'm Carl Don Stover and I'm doing Module 15 over the Truman Elementary School case study. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're just going to start with Category 1A. What do you know? First of all, Truman Elementary School is a pre-K through 8th grade school. In this district, this is actually a really large district in the Midwest. There are 4 K through 8 buildings. Those are between 500 and 700 students. There are 2 K through 4th grade, and then there's 1 5 through 8, and there's 1 high school. Truman Elementary School is actually the largest of all the elementary schools with about 700 students. How they break this school down is they have 1 preschool area. Then from K through 6, there are 3 different classrooms at each grade level. And then 7 through 8, those classes are split into different teams. Now, this school is about 15% qualify for free and reduced. Lunches, about 5% are their first language isn't English, so ELL or ELSO learners. So, we have a varying differences of what's going on here. Their principal has been here for a little bit. Been there for 2 years, so he does have a little bit of experience and background, but he's trying to, spearhead this school into the right direction. So when we're breaking down the data on here, we can really see that there's a lot of really low reading scores, and from that there's going to be a dissatisfied parent. So let's talk about the reading scores first. All the scores are in the 40s and 50s on every single grade level. The reading scores consistently go down between grade levels. I'm just going to use this as an example. As students, while they were in the first grade, that was 3 years ago, scored a 55. In the second grade, which was last year, they scored a 52. And in the third grade, which was this year, they scored a 51. So they're not showing any improvement or learning at all while going through this school. The national test does say that they're doing worse in reading in comparison to math. However, a lot of their math scores could actually be better as well because they're seeing some negative feedback in that, just not as much. They're really losing ground between each grade. Now, these low test scores, students being low and not proficient in reading, has really looked at some parents, having some outcry. They have negative views on the school, negative views on how they're teaching reading. The PTO actually requested the principal to address these concerns at a meeting. So the principal actually did go back and do some work. He went through and surveyed a lot of the different schools to try to get what he thought was going on. And he also asked the district's reading supervisor to come in and visit. This reading supervisor actually gave some recommendations to the school itself. It said it had a very basal reading program. There was only 1 hour per day in language arts. The instruction was always in big groups. There was no reading aloud. They read aloud, and then they did a workbook. There was no differences given in performance level. Students who struggled were given the same things as students who excelled. And hardly anybody talks about strategy reading or anything like that. She gave some excellent recommendations of phonics, comprehensive, integrated reading and writing, and pretty well said 1 hour is not enough. It needed more of a balanced curriculum. Amazingly enough, the PTO, actually the president, sent a letter as well, and pretty well said very similar things. We're not teaching reading. We're not teaching a spelling program. There's no teachers' corrections. We're not teaching kids how to use phonics and how to sound out words. The smart kids aren't challenged. And she wonders why we're not teaching phonics. To go along with all of this, the principal has actually found this grant opportunity as well, where the school could get a grant dollars from the State Department of Education, possibly between $200,000 and $250,000 to cover a 2-year period that the school could utilize. The determination of this is what their poverty level and achievement scores are, what the prep work the school has done. They have to do surveys, It has to be research-based, so they're going to have a very good plan. And then they also have to propose a budget to do this as well. So it's pretty intensive. And if they're going to take $200,000 away for somebody, why wouldn't it be intensive? Just into what I think I need to know. So one of the first questions I have is, we're talking about reading and language art, and I was like, we haven't mentioned anything about a library. I want to know what the library is like. What does our library staff look like? Do we have a librarian? Do we have library aides? How are we utilizing that library center? Or how I like to call it in our school is a reading center. Next, what professional development of education do the teachers currently have in reading? How much is the current school budget is devoted to language arts and reading? Next one, I've already taken the SPED class, special education class, and I was actually wondering, are we properly identifying all of our students with reading disabilities? Are we figuring out those classifications? Do these students need added help? Do they need added time? Do we possibly have some 504 students who need help or just need to isolate them so they can have a good testing environment? And how many of these students are actually getting help from the special ed department? And next, are teachers contacting parents about students who are struggling with reading? I really feel like there's a communication gap in this scenario, so I want to know what the teachers are actually doing to talk to the parents to try to see what they can do to work together to help the reading program. Okay, so when I'm identifying the problem, I see there's probably a lot of different micro problems that's leading into one big problem. First of all, the students, they're not meeting state reading benchmark goals. This is causing dissatisfaction from parents, administrations, and fact of all, reading is so important. If we can't have those students reading at an acceptable level, they're going to continue on struggling into high school and they're going to struggle in life. I can see some of these causers of this problem being poor consistency from changing in grade levels, low language art content time, low staffification of teaching strategy regions, comprehension, phonics. Some of the higher level students really aren't being challenged. They're just kind of given this straight flat line, so they're not really able to soar up and figure things out and really be challenged. Also, these students are receiving no individualized attention, so it's just kind of like we're all going to do it as a group. Some people need more of that one-on-one or small groups action to really be able to attain that and comprehend what's going on. So lots of small problems, but the biggest one is we're not meeting our state benchmark goals, and we're actually going down seemingly with our data. So category 2A and B, this is my plan of action with strategies of implementation. I have this just broken down into a simple step-by-step. Do understand there's probably some micro steps that I might have missed or something like that. Step 1, I really think we should do some teacher surveys of reading education and student success in their reading area. I want to know what the teachers think. They need to be welcomed into this so they don't feel like they're being attacked, like saying you're not doing a good job, you're not teaching kids to read. We need to welcome them in, see what their opinion is. Do they not have the knowledge? Do they not have the education? Do they not feel like they have the money, the funding to actually be a good reading teacher? We need to ask, we need to find out. Next is I really want to figure out what the parents think instead of just the PTO group, because there's a lot of parents who aren't involved in PTO. We want to survey those parents to talk to them about what they do with reading in their home, opinions on where their students is struggling the most in reading. Do they feel like their students just doesn't understand what they read? Do they feel like their students can't say the words or don't actually look at the letters and know what the letters are? Step 3. I want to further break down that state data into teacher classrooms to see if there's certain target points where certain teachers are really excelling and some are really not. Plus, I want to find the mean, median, mode of those students and kind of see where our consistent points are. I would also like to break down the standard derivative points to see who are our upper level students, who are our ones that are super struggling, and who's kind of our just our middle ground. I would also be curious on how ethnics, ESOL, and then Also, maybe some income plays into this, and we could break that down with the data. I think we would really maybe uncover a lot of information that we don't currently know. Step 4, I want to share those results of the surveys, and I want to share those observations of the principal and the reading super specialist to all the staff members. I want them to know that there's a possibility of a grant opportunity in the reading area, and I want to have a conversation. I want to be building those bridges so all of us can jump on board of the success train and keep on chugging along so that we can improve our reading scores. The only way you're going to get your teachers to buy in is you have had open dialogue with those teachers. Those teachers need to be a part of that idea building session. This is a place where we can say, you know what, I struggle doing this. I need help. I need professional development. Or maybe there's somebody who's already went to a professional development, or they know somebody from another school. We can share those ideas, get them out on the table. Next, step 6. We want to send at least 90% of the staff to a reading workshop or conference. I want to target different types of conferences from high-level students to ESOL, ELL to low reading levels and SPED. I maybe even want to send some to actually be trained in technical reading as too, because these kids, some of them are going to be welders, they're going to be small engine mechanics, they're going to work in construction, and maybe they're not going to be reading a book daily, but they need to be able to read plans, charts, graphs, etc. So lots of different conferences to kind of bring it all back, so we have a good idea of what's out there, what's available. Also, I talked about that library point. Is I want to send the library staff to a conference on building an interactive library program. This is one area where I feel my school excels on. We have all the kids want to go to the library. The library always has reading programs. They have reading games, reading searches. I mean, it's just amazing. It's an interactive library. Our librarian is amazing. Step 8, after those workshops, I want to bring everybody together, talk about it, but also to start designing and selecting a reading education and library program for the school. One thing I think we could do with this, which I don't have written down on the screen, is maybe after we talk about it as a large staff group, maybe let's break down and take volunteers and make that into a reading leadership team so that they can maybe more easily make decisions. Big groups usually struggle with making a concrete decision, but if we isolate it down, then we can have secure decisions being made. With this team, I want to formulate a plan of action, implementation timeline, and a budget for the reading education program. This is something we are going to have to do for that grant program, and I think my steps 10 is apply for that grant money. You know, hope we get it, but bigger thing is I want to start implementing this right in the way. I want to put it in place no matter what, but I want to apply for that grant program. Free money is great money, and if we can utilize it to help our students succeed, we have done everybody favors. Okay. Step 11. I want to provide teachers with a reading program training and change the library into an inclusive and interaction reading point in the school. Okay, this is where all that professional development kind of comes into place. We need to get that professional development going with our teachers, train them so they know what to do, train them so we can be consistent from grade level to grade level to grade level. And then we want to give teachers the time to actually figure it out and put it into place in their classroom. Step 12. I want to do a parent workshop with the reading changes and address how parents can help their students with this reading development. I think buy-in from our parents is going to be very important because our parents are kind of the ones that are backing us, sending their students to us. If they see we're trying to make a change for the better for the students, they're going to be supportive. They're going to be like, hey, how's your reading going? What activity did you do in reading? How's that writing going? They'll kind of do those checkups with their kids. Step 12, I want to consistently have checkups with teachers, walkthroughs, grade checks, and professional development meeting conversations. We need to continually be looking at this always. Okay, never let it set, always be striving for excellence. Okay, step 13, I want to do the end of the year check to see if we have improved and adjust. Also, I want to start comparing those data points to see, are we improving? Are we not improving? Kind of just where are we so we can keep track. We want to be always improving and moving up. I'm going to pause this video and we'll finish on the second one.